I'd like to call this regular scheduled Oscoda Township Board meeting for July 10th, 2023 to order. If we could begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cummings? Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer? Here. Mr. Taser?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Wurstbart? Mr. Palmer?
Here. Next, the agenda. Are there any additions?
No.
No additions. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
A motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
A motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Next up, we have our public comments. This first public comment, we ask that you fill out a comment card. Please state your name if you would come to the podium. Do we have any cards?
We have one,
One.
and that is Brian Haley, and he would like to discuss the Economic Improvement Director RFP and the municipal building.
Do you have to turn on the microphone, or is it on?
Should be on.
It's on? Okay. You can hear me then, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm at a disadvantage because my eyesight, I hate to admit it, is not too good.
Oh, sorry.
Many years of welding. All right, now on the EID contract, the last time we went around this, we hired, and the person we selected, even though it was in the contract, he did not have the ability to write for grants. And also, we hired him as a contractor. And I said so at the time that that would probably cause you harm in a chain of command and structure. And also, I did disagree with the pay because actually the one that has the most responsibility in a charter township form of government is indeed the superintendent. So when you pay more and you have a contractor, things start to go sideways. And I believe that's what happened. Not to get too negative on that subject because, that's water over the bridge, but I would hope that the next EID, it looks like you want to hire one, nothing against these things, should have definitely the ability to write for grant. I see that that's in the proposal, but I did not see where it was that this person would be a township employee. I would guessing along the lines of a department head. So we're in the $60,000 to $70,000 range with benefits. Now, as far as the next subject, because 4 minutes is a short time. Now, on the road contract from 2019, and Bill and I have been talking about this, but I'm not going to speak for Bill, obviously. In the original contract agreement with Rowe, we were to do a structural needs assessment of the township hall, and then go to the space needs assessment, and then go to a cost analysis and other things in the third. We skipped, the most important part was the structural needs assessment, because we need to know the condition of the hall. Can we add on to it? We have plenty of space on the south lawn. I measured it out at over 10,000 square feet. So obviously we could go 4 stories there with a 6,000-foot imprint on the lawn. And that was partially the original plan when we sold our old meeting room where now the Alcona Health Center is at. And I know that because I was at that meeting when that went down, and I forget the year now, fly by. And I talked to Bob Stalker, and I said, well, what's your plans then? He said, well, we're going to build on the south lawn, it looks like, and we've got a cost estimate. And I said, oh, what are you looking at? He said, well, we'll build a boardroom. I said, well, okay, boardroom, training room for our fire and police then, because they can use that. Because when you add up the man hours of all of your meetings per month, I did it, for all of you, all your boards and committees, You don't even use the boardroom 40 hours per month. So you have basically 3 weeks of time left over for anything else that you want to do in there. As far as training for police and fire, desktop training is the way to go nowadays, plus their equipment is there. But anyway, it gets back to the structure needs assessment, and in our line of thought, we have to know what our needs are, and then you build out from there on the dream part of it. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And all those other things. It gets back to the original agreement. WTA now in the letter that you guys are working, Ms. Klein's working off of, and you guys are working off of now, does address the first agreement. That we're going to pick up where we left off on the work product from the first agreement. And so let me end on this. We did not do the structural needs assessment, which was in the first agreement. See, we did not do it. We skipped it. Okay, so if we get back to that, I think we won't have so much confusion moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other
No.
comment cards? Okay. Next up is our consent agenda. The meeting minutes. I believe Mr. Sutton sent out a revised copy of the minutes to the board members, and also the meeting minutes from the subcommittee meeting, public policy subcommittee meeting. Any comments, questions on those? Then we have the payment of bills, the prepaids for July 11th in the amount of $116,334.57. The check run June 30th, $91,989.44. The check run for the WEX account for July 6th, $9,738.84. The C2R2 payments of $205,651, and the CWSRF payment of $1,000. Are there any questions, concerns, comments? Questions about the payment of bills? If not, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Or,
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Taser. Roll call, please.
Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Taser,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes, motion passed. Next up, Superintendent's report, the Economic Director RFP request.
Okay, at the June 26th Policy Subcommittee meeting, the committee reviewed and created a job description for a new Economic Improvement Director. In order for Oscoda to continue to grow and have prosperity, I believe we need a director to plan and organize future development projects, continue to encourage existing businesses to expand, and assist with development assistance and incentive programs. The job description is in the meeting packet for review, and I'm asking for permission to advertise for a new Economic Improvement Director based on the job description provided.
Questions? Comments? Everybody have a chance to review the,
Yeah, I looked through it a little bit. I don't see are we looking for another subcontractor or an employee this time?
A township employee this time.
Oh, we tried it the other way, right?
Yes.
yeah.
I did, when I was looking through there, one of the things that Mr. Healy pointed out was one of the things that I was kind of excited about, because we're hearing a lot about all these grants that we keep missing. And it would be nice to get a grant writer in here that will apply to every grant that we could possibly qualify for, and maybe some we don't, just to see what happens.
Well, with the thanks of some other people that were present at the subcommittee meeting, that is a specification in the job qualifications, is successful, proof of successful grant writing.
Good deal.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that they would be able to show successful grant writing experience as opposed to maybe just saying, well, I took some classes on how to write grants. So if the individual can show experience with writing grants, that's a big plus, I think, for us. Any other comments, questions?
The only thing I would say is that I liked everything in there. I think we should look in the price range depending on the experience that's being on the resume. So we'd have a broad range of, between 60,000 and 85,000 or whatever that range would be depending on their experience and qualifications.
Yeah, I think that it's not included in this proposal here for the requirements, but we did talk about in the policy committee meeting that it would be a township employee and have an advertised price range. I think, was it 60 and 75,000? Was that?
It's not, that's what it was.
I think that's
Yeah.
what we agreed.
I didn't want to really go any higher than that, honestly.
Yeah, I think
Is it
70.
appropriate to apply bonuses to that position based on a successful grant?
I wouldn't think so.
No?
No.
I think in private business they can do that. I didn't know
Yeah.
in government that was allowed.
Yeah.
No.
That's a
Can't
negative.
take kickbacks.
No.
Correct, sir.
Incentives.
Correct.
Tammy, where do you plan on advertising that position?
They have, Michigan Municipal League has advertising, along with Mr. Freeman, I think, has some areas I could advertise in. Alpena paper, I've done that before. Traverse City, all over the state, you can advertise in their papers too.
Maps has a
Yes.
page on it.
Probably be in contact with MEDC too to see if they have any direction for us in that regard.
Do we put anything up on Michigan Works?
We can do that too. We have a login, so we can put it there too. That's usually one of the spots we do.
Would there be a time frame what we're looking at?
Can advertise for 4 weeks. Should
Yeah,
be long enough.
Typically, we advertise for about a month and then go through the interview process based on applications that were received. It's been past practice.
So we'll do for 4 weeks.
So 4 weeks. Any other comments, questions? Ms. McGuire? Have any?
No, thank you.
So I guess what we're looking for is a motion to approve the job description that we have in our packet. So do I have a motion for that?
I would make a motion to approve the job description provided and have the superintendent begin advertising for the new economic improvement director for 4 weeks.
Can you add the pay range, please?
With a pay range of between 60 and 75,000?
Okay.
Is that agreeable?
Should we toss in it based on experience?
Well, that's how you come up with the rate, once the negotiating committee meets with the candidates. They establish what that would be,
And that'll be 65 to 75?
67.
60 to
60 to
75.
60 to 75.
Was there support?
I'll support that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the federal grant policy. You want to
Do you want me
talk about this a little bit?
Yep.
We spent quite a bit of time reviewing this.
We did. So your packet has a federal grant policy that was also reviewed at the policy subcommittee. Currently, we do not have a federal grant policy, which is required when receiving federal grant funds, and it ensures that all the federal funds we do receive are lawfully spent. It also keeps us in compliance with the Uniform Grant Guidance, which provides the rules and requirements for federal grants. So this is very important.
I seem to remember Jamie talking about a bunch of grant requirements for the money and whatnot in the past, because you were focused on making sure that the money was tracked properly through the system. A couple of years ago, we talked about it, and there's no policy, that was just you being on top of it then?
I guess so.
Just nod and smile, I guess.
Just say sure.
Okay.
I mean, I can't believe.
We all
it.
track
I think we were talking about, I think what you're talking about, Jeremy, was using the BSNA system with the grant tracking program that's within our
Yes,
general ledger.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually just the federal awards administration policy that we have to have by law. We have to have that. They instituted that a while back, and
So we
just
were
getting
doing
around
it,
that.
we just didn't have a policy saying we were going to do it.
We have our own
Guidelines.
checks and balances and a
Yeah.
procedure, how we are doing it between Tammy and I. Yes, it basically is just formalizing it this way.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's required.
And I don't think in the past we've received that many federal grants. Most of ours are state
Right.
grants that we've received.
And this is a newer GASB requirement, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was also reviewed by our attorney?
Yes.
And she had the one comment that was noted on here?
Yes.
which You made that change?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments about this federal grant policy?
And just her little note on the side there, we do use, I think what that is referring to is the spreadsheet that,
The off-record thing?
yeah, the off-record is a separate spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet to make sure, like with, I'm sure Rick uses something like that for his revenue and expenditures. But we do definitely use the finance software, that it does go through there, absolutely. But I'm sure that it incorporates too, so I'm really not sure if we want to add that or not. Do we want to be able to use him to be able to utilize the Excel?
Yeah, well, that's like a backup tracking mechanism, so, yes.
So then we can compare with him with what we have in our system before we get to the end of the year. I would suggest that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do we have a motion?
So I will make a motion to approve it without adding the amendment from the attorney.
I'll support that. We have a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wustabart?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next up, the annual employee evaluation packet.
Provided for the board's review is the annual employee evaluation packet, which contains a job description form, the physical demands for the position, and an employee/self-evaluation form. Currently, the only position evaluated is the superintendent's position. No other positions in the township have ever been subject to evaluation. Job descriptions are also being reviewed along with the physical requirements for each position. Small side note, our job descriptions have not been updated since 2003, and for good HR, they should be reviewed and updated every year, annually. So the packet being proposed to the board are forms created by myself and the clerk's office and are subject to board approval to use starting January 2024 to be implemented on all township employees annually. Now, Mr. Palmer asked me earlier today, that does not pertain to the deputies because those obviously report to the clerk's office and the treasurer's office. These would just be regular township employees. And I think if you look at the forms, and especially Shelley decided to use herself for an example, so we weren't singling anybody out. But I believe that the self-evaluation gives the employee an opportunity to say, hey, I'm struggling here, or I need some training here. And I think it would just be a lot more helpful moving forward in the future for employees.
And this is, my understanding, this has never been done by the township in the past.
Never.
And since our job descriptions haven't been revised in 20 years, this should be able to keep us on top of changing the job descriptions as time goes on, because jobs do change over time as things change. I mean, things change. There's no getting around that.
Are we also going to update the employee manual to include a quick description of the reviews?
Yes, that'll be in line. We have another policy subcommittee meeting tomorrow that's going over board protocol, so I'm trying to get as many in as possible. This is our second meeting in 2 weeks, so.
Because this is, doing something like this is going to have a little bit of a ripple effect, where we need to update other documentation to say that we're going to do this as well.
Yes.
Cool.
Any other comments, questions?
I just want to say that doing the job descriptions is a great thing because MTA gives you guidelines for the job duties and different things that you have going on, but every township is different because of your staffing levels and things like that. So I think it's important for us to outline what everybody actually is doing, and you said it, they'll be able to do this themselves and notice where they are short and where they are excelling at and help with where their training opportunities could be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it will give the employees an opportunity to express where they feel they need additional training. The board has passed a requirement that all boards and committees get at least 6 hours of training a year. That doesn't necessarily apply to employees, but that's not to say that employees shouldn't have some training, and I think they would probably know best what training they need to do their job. So I think this will be a good step for us to take to get this underway. So thank you for putting that together.
And there are some trainings that are, like DPW has to have, like harness training and all of those type things. And one of the examples of how job descriptions is look at our own, in the last 10 years that I've been involved in planning, look at the difference in the zoning director's position itself, how much has changed in the last 20 years. So.
Yeah. And something I recently learned with the EIT committee, the bike path that we're coming up, as time goes on, since a good portion of that runs through the national forest, you know, there's anticipation that over winters and things, branches and things will come down, block the path. It'll need to be cleared. The Forest Service requires that you have specialized training to operate a chainsaw. You can't just have anybody volunteer with a chainsaw to go out there and trim the lawns up. So they require that you have certification that you're trained in proper use of a chainsaw. So
Licensed and insured.
yes. So any other questions on this? I think it's a great idea. It should have been done a long time ago, in my opinion. So I will make a motion to approve the annual employee evaluation packet forms and approve the superintendent to begin annual employee evaluations beginning January of 2024.
Support, Sutton?
One more question, just, I think we discussed it today, but is it going to be every January for everybody, or is it on their anniversary date?
Well, I thought that at the beginning of the year would be the best time. That way, for budgeting purposes, if there was some training, upcoming training, we could actually put that into the budget. And it's just, you know, that's when we get the COLA increase, and it's just a quiet time for everybody, you know. Maybe not for you.
Not for
But for like DPW
Right.
and the employees wise, winter time's usually a slower time.
Right, okay.
So.
With the one exception.
Yeah.
Ms. McGuire's
Yeah.
treasurer's
It's the
office.
treasurer's office.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next up is Resolution 2023-15. Would you like to?
So this
Describe that.
resolution is required for the assessor to be able to do border review. This should have been in the last packet, and unfortunately, we had a little mix-up, so here it is this time around as the poverty exception.
Okay.
It's an annual, it needs to be done every year. We did one last year, the year before, so.
Questions, comments?
It's one of those bite your lip situations.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-15 for the poverty exemption.
Support?
We have a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Wusterbarth. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. So now we have our poverty exemption in place. Next up is the clarification of municipal services building.
That would be my corner.
That would be you.
Okay. Apologize for missing the last meeting, but our subcommittee meeting about the municipal building came forward, and the major question was we need clarifications on exactly what that expectation is. In my little handout that I did in my report that I was going to give last week, the Board of Trustees meeting on February 14th of 2022 created a subcommittee with the Planning Commission to investigate and initiate the planning process for a new multi-use facility to include community center, police, fire, community meeting space, and township offices. Mr. Sutton supported the motion by Mr. Wusterbarth and approved the creation of a subcommittee within the Planning Commission to investigate and initiate the planning process for a multiple use facility to include a community center, police, fire, community meeting space, and township offices. The needs assessment has been presented to the Planning Commission as reported in this report, but the Planning Commission met with a special meeting to go over that assessment. The discussion then turned to how to proceed with this project because of what the motion states. Number one, creation of a subcommittee. We decided to tackle it as a whole on the committee. Number two, the motion states a multi-use facility. Does that mean a single building, multiple story, single building? Number three is it also states that the facility to include community center, police, fire, meeting space, township offices. Should it also include a senior center and a library? And number four, should we investigate multiple buildings as an option? So if we're just looking at that needs assessment for the according to what the motion was, they provided us with what our needs are, square footage and everything, and a diagram of a single-story building facility that would incorporate all of the things, including a senior center and a library. And if that's all this board is really looking for, then we can give that. Or are we looking at more options on what our needs are and how to fulfill those needs? Multiple buildings, one building, multiple story building, senior center, community center, all of those things included in it. Well, the two that wasn't included was senior center and a library. So clarification would be useful for us to be able to proceed.
I guess I can start. I looked at this as just one facility. It did not include senior center or the library
Okay.
at that time, but say as an option, we could look at that, but I'd like to see what the planning commission has worked on since February 22. Just to see where it's at.
We haven't got back our information until, a month ago. So we do have a report.
I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Sutton to chime in too, because we were both involved in that motion. So.
Yeah, I think we didn't, the senior center is a collaborative between us and Oscoda and has their own standalone. I guess I'd like to see all-in-one and then current facilities just based on that, because that would require Oscoda if we tried to move the senior center, and I haven't heard from the seniors. They kind of like where they're at, they like their trail and everything, so they've got their own little place off the beaten path, they don't get a lot of traffic. The library is standalone right now. Robin, our librarian, is phenomenal there. Every time we've went in, I mean, we're waiting to get into meeting rooms and it's packed in there. So again, those two centers, the center and the library kind of stand alone as they are now, and that I guess would be up to them if we needed to move those or consolidate. So I'd like to see kind of an all-in-one and then standalone for what we have now, if that helps.
I would mention that the senior center was built in the 1980s, and we, as Oscoda Township, pays for, correct me if I'm wrong, 75% of that building and the updates of that building. They're looking at replacing some things on that building. That would be quite expensive. And if there is, right now, I believe there is a lot of funding available for senior centers.
The money that goes into that is earmarked via millage, though, is it not? So it's not like if we didn't spend it on that, we could spend it on something else. It has to be spent on that.
Correct.
So, and I see where Mr. Sutton's coming from, where it's already a separate entity and trying to wrangle Oscoda into paying for part of our new building is going to be,
Yeah.
that would be a trial.
We've been paying 75% of a building in Oscoda since the 80s also.
Right, but it's its own separate building, and it's much easier for them to say, well, if there's a $100,000 repair fee, we, you know, us as Oscoda, we're going to pay $25K. And they have, I mean, that one has its own board that has its own
Building
budget.
Authority Board, yes.
Yeah, the building authority, and they take care of all the maintenance and everything that the seniors want. I haven't gotten any complaints from anybody about what's going on over there. Have you? No?
What type of arrangement do we even have with them? Does anybody know? Like, could you even say, okay, we don't want to be a part of this anymore? I mean, where is that agreement and what are the stipulations?
We have a 30-year
30 years?
lease with them currently. We just signed it, actually.
So we have 30 more years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is the millage up in 2024 and it's up for renewal then? Or is it 2026?
They just did theirs.
2020, how many years? 2025?
Yes.
They've got plenty of room out there to do things that they want to do, and if we jail them to a static space within a single building,
I just know they have a lot going on out of the senior center
oh
between
man,
the
I mean, they're
the
feeding
food,
people, they got
yeah, they've
kitchens,
got
they're
the kitchen
subleasing
and
the kitchen
food.
to somebody else.
The
and-
back room, they do different food drives and
Oh, yeah.
necessities for the seniors, so there's,
I mean, that might even put an undue strain on a single building, because now we have to have all the food preparation service built into that building as well, and that's going to be an expense where
I
it's
think
already
you should
set.
get the report handed to all the
Yeah, I'd like to,
trustees.
like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
look through it, just, you know, that's why we're on this topic.
Yeah, that would have been helpful.
Yeah. We just received this ourselves.
Cool.
And just on a side note, Oscoda Township has 3 members on that board. Oscoda has 2. Currently, we only have 1 active, one has resigned but is remaining. So we really need some people to step up from Oscoda to be on that senior center board, to represent Oscoda Township.
I actually found one person, a
Great.
younger person that wants
Great.
to be on that this weekend.
Great.
So I'll
That's great.
give that name to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's an important board. since it
That's
is,
what my scribble says.
and I don't have a problem with the senior center, the way it is, where it is. It's just that Oscoda needs to be represented, so that, because we are paying the majority of the cost of that building, and I actually believe DeSable receives property tax on that building, I believe. But anyway, it's important that we have our 3 representatives from Oscoda on that board, so if you have somebody, that's great.
The only reason why that was really brought up into this old municipal building is because of the grant funding that's available there's a lot of money available for senior
For new
centers,
senior
yes.
centers, yes.
So that's why I
But it
brought
doesn't
that
have to be
forward.
incorporated into a municipal building.
Nope,
We
it
could
doesn't.
apply for
It
those
doesn't.
grants where it stands, couldn't we?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you say needs, this is the actual needs, is not wants. It's an actual.
These are
what
a
we
needs
need.
assessment. These are what the needs are. This is what, all the square footages and all of that they've gone through over the past year, and brought forward, so.
Does the have you read through it yet? I haven't seen it yet.
I've gone through it extensively.
And do they notate where, when the building, let's say 50 years ago, ballpark, 50 years ago, we needed this, now currently we need this.
Mhm.
Did they give us a difference so that we can maybe say, okay, well, let's plan for the future and give an additional 20% of space or something like that?
Yeah, they went 10 years into the future.
Okay.
They planned it out for 10 years. What do our needs be in 10 years from now? And that's what they based on.
Oh, excellent, all right.
I would say maybe a motion to review the packet and bring the next meeting, just so we all are caught up on what was presented.
Support, Spencer.
Well, I don't think we need a motion just to have it as
No.
an agenda
Well,
item.
Yeah.
Just, I guess, the other thing that I want the board and to be cognizant of is the discussions with Consumers Energy that we've been having and the future of the dams. We have 4 of them in our township. They're talking about, different options and not them being there anymore and producing the energy, that clean energy. And if they don't do that, then they're going to be taking some of their equipment out of there, which they get taxed on.
Yeah.
They are our #1 taxpayer in Oscoda Township. And we also make over $1 million from Old Orchard Park, which is that we lease that property. And if those dams ever came out of there, I have pictures if anybody wants to see what it looked like back in 1974, 75 timeframe, when they just lowered the dam, the water to fix the foot dam. So it's incredible to see, and it'll be way worse than what that was. So nobody's going to come to Old Orchard to camp if it's a stream. So
It'll look like Midland.
I don't mean to be the sky is falling, but we need to be realistic in what the possibilities are. And
I
keep
think we
that.
could approach that through maybe a geological master plan for that area, something that's been discussed, so. But on this municipal building thing, it's,
I got a couple of comments, but just on Jamie's comment, Consumers is up for their FREC. It's an every 10-year deal, and that's their certification and permit to operate the turbines. So they're making a decision whether they're going to keep them or not. So there's no decision yet. Anybody doesn't know, but they've had public meetings. Everybody in the public's been invited. There's going to be more meetings in the next 6 months, because I think by end of March, they have to submit their applications to the federal government for their operation permit of the dams.
Absolutely. We just had a few of us met with Consumers Energy, and they actually considered they wanted the communities to help fund the dams. And we can't do that. We have 4 dams in our township alone. So, and even the county said, no, we don't have the money to help fund dams for your maintenance. If you can't run them, we can't afford to run them. So there was a lot of discussion there. They did mention we're going to have another meeting. There's going to be another public meetings this fall. They wanted to have the meeting for Foot and Cook Dam here in Oscoda, and then have 5 channels in Loud Dam in Hale, which I kind of wondered why that was, because they're still Oscoda Township for the Oscoda Township residents. So I requested that they have them all at Oscoda High School, so that the public is aware of what an impact that's actually going to be if something happens to any one of the dams, actually. So
Yeah, and
it will affect our tax roll.
major effect on our tax roll, and one of the things that we've kind of kicked around is the possibility of dams not being hydro generators anymore, just dams that will control the level of the river.
Right.
So we could keep Foot Pond, Cook Pond in place, and what cost that would be to consumers if they would be willing to do that. So that's.
So how's that gonna affect this municipal building thing right now? You know,
I guess to me, if you build a $17 million building and you have no revenue, how are you gonna pay to maintain it? I mean, how are you gonna, moving forward?
I understand.
Well, this is, I guess, my comment, and I appreciate, Bob, this is good information. So I was going to save this for board comments, but it kind of ties in with the community center and a follow-up item on a visit to White Lake Township for all of us to go attend. The supervisor is back from medical leave, so in the next 6 weeks, I'd like to get some dates from everybody. We might have to do it in 2 meetings because we can't all be together. If more than 4 or more than 3 of us at a time. But just with that, and looking at the numbers here, I want to find out how White Lake, a little bit smaller revenue than us, was able to get a $28 million grant to do their new community center, which they're starting to break ground in the fall. So that's one of the options that, I definitely want to talk to them on how they did it. And most of that was funded through grants. So,
Was that the same White Lake you wanted us to go to for
Yep.
the finance record?
yep.
Actually, I think their budget is way higher than ours, isn't it?
This year, it's pretty similar, within $1 million.
I don't remember that, actually.
So anyway, if, in the next 6 weeks, if I could get some dates from everyone, I will get those scheduled for a trip. They're opened up their arms and would like us to come down a bit.
So the answer for this bring back to the planning commission would be, we're gonna pass this out to the board of trustees here, review it and talk about it at the next meeting?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, what I would like to, my interpretation, when I went back to the minutes of doing the design services proposal, and it said the Planning Commission was tasked by the Board of Trustees with creating a subcommittee to investigate and initiate the planning process for a new multi-use facility. Now, maybe I'm off base here, but I took that to mean that the Planning Commission, and as it turned out, instead of forming a subcommittee, the Planning Commission felt that the whole Planning Commission itself would be the committee that would work on this. That they would look at all aspects of this, whether or not it would be one building, 1 story, 2 stories, 2 separate buildings, whatever the best recommendation from the Planning Commission would be. The primary need, at least right now, is for the fire and police departments. They are terribly short on space for training and offices and everything else. That's probably the basis for this entire thing being proposed, is that our fire department just doesn't have room to do what they need to do and to house the equipment. So my thought was that the Planning Commission would investigate all the possibilities. Would it be multiple locations? You have the fire, because the fire and police need to be together. That they've determined. So if it's a public safety building, this by itself, can the current Township Hall hold a 2nd story if we want to put a conference room up on a 2nd floor or a 3rd floor or a 4th floor? We have
talking about-
That's
additional
why we
room?
brought this here
If
today.
we're talking about going up on stories on the Township Hall, which I think we should, then aren't we gonna need that structural needs assessment?
Well, that's what's coming
Yes.
next.
Well, we're not
That's
to the point yet of, first we have to determine what our needs are. And then after our needs, we start talking about where that could fit, where it could go. So you'd have options on where, and the assessment would then come into effect. But right now, at the Planning Commission, we were tasked, a very distinct motion was made, and they wanted clarification, is you want one building, and you want what this report gives, then here's your answer. If you want us to...
I don't know. We don't know. We can't
I
say
know,
we
but
want
we're
one
looking
building or not. I mean,
exactly
there has to be a cost analysis as well, and without a structural
And
assessment.
those would be the next phases.
Right?
Right now, the question is what our needs are. We need a clarification on exactly what the needs are, so once we know what the needs are, they have a direction on how that would fit, in what type of a building, where it could go, and then you have to look at the needs assessment of the current building along with other facilities.
So the document you have right there is the needs assessment then?
It tells us what it would take, what space each department needs.
Okay, so we need to make a decision on whether that's what we need then, or we're happy with that?
Well, yeah.
Because you're saying we can't make a
You
decision.
need to look
on
at
whether
it
we
and
need
see if
multiple
that's what you're
buildings.
happy with. There's things in here that shows broken out for needs for each, the community center, this is for the community center. This is what would be needed to build a community center for 10 years into the future of what it would look like, okay? The next one would be the municipal services center. Okay, that's your offices, your administration, your storage areas, all of those things that would be needed in square footage to accommodate what our administrative needs are. So each one of these is broken down to that very thing. I don't know what this one is. I think it's the fire department. But it's all in this report. If this is what you're looking for, then the planning commission has done its job. If you want the planning commission to do more, then we need that defined on what you want us to do. It breaks it down on a summary of budget and what these particular things in here would cost.
Well, how can they know that if we haven't decided if it's going to be a single building or if we're
This
adding
is
on to
based on a
another one?
single
That's a
building.
single building.
Okay.
So they finished the assignment, and
don't-
there's
They finished the
multiple
assignment
options.
as a single building, what was made in the motion.
And that's what we need to
Let's
see
have it then.
first.
So that's,
Well, it sounds like we're going to be talking about this for the next couple of meetings, so I
Yeah.
look forward to getting that document, and off we go then.
So is that enough? On the agenda was for clarification on this, so do we have clarification? Is everybody
I mean,
clear on
it's-
what we
it's-
want to do?
It doesn't sound like we have.
well, no, here's the clarification that I'm taking this as. That, to me, what that says is that so far, until the planning commission is tasked to do the next step, then we're presented with what you asked us to do with this document. Now you review the document and you give us a new task, then we'll tackle that. And hopefully it won't take a year
Right.
to come back with it.
Will the footprint for the one building, will that fit on, if you could build onto and up where the township hall is now, would that footprint fit there?
This is only a single floor building.
Oh.
But
Oh.
but it gives us a square footage necessity.
It gives you the square footage.
So feasibly, as long as, if we say it needs X amount of square feet and we can accomplish that with 3 stories on this side and 4 stories on this side, all in the same block, then yes.
You can tell us right now at the planning commission level that, give us an option of a single story or a multiple story. It's the same needs, and then the architect is gonna go and spend some more money and write up a design for a multiple story building,
Based on what?
based on these findings of what our needs are. And we can have them eliminate the senior center and library out of there, because those are all, each one of these is individual, you can take them right out, okay? Because it's, or you could put them right back in, because it might, you may be able to use multiple use rooms to accommodate those items.
Yes.
Okay,
Are
so,
are they moving forward with a structural assessment of the current township hall?
well,
is that-
we haven't asked them to, they're doing that, yes, but
Okay.
that so far is not a part, we haven't gotten to the point yet, because we haven't decided on multiple story, we haven't gotten to the where. Where is it gonna go? If you're gonna go just by this document, 3.3 acres.
I want a multi-story, where it's
I'm
at.
right there with Jamie McGuire.
Yep.
Right there. Not for multiple stories, right where it's at, make it pretty.
Yeah.
Blend
Good
right
job.
in with the
Then
others
that's the
downtown.
direction the planning commission is looking for.
All right, well, we
Looking for
can,
your direction
well, we,
on how to do that. But I think that has to be an entire board decision after they review this.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it. Everybody's been waiting for this
And
for a
leave the
while, so.
senior center and the library out.
Yeah, throw them out. Up the plane.
If we leave the senior center and the library out, could we at least look in to see if there's any grant funding to upgrade the ones that we have?
You know
Yeah,
what,
oh,
we
yeah.
just were talking about bringing in a brand-new grant writer that's gonna apply for every grant under the sun.
'Cause there's a lot of money available for those items.
I think the gal that wants to be on the senior center, she's a ball of energy. I think she'll
Good.
be happy.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Yep.
Okay, so do we have
So
clarification
my
now?
answer to the planning commission going back is, you're going to review this, and then you're gonna give us the direction you want us to follow.
Which is probably gonna be multiple stories on the current property.
Well, when you make
Yeah,
that,
that's right.
then I can take it back in and say, here's the answer.
Awesome.
And Jeff is sitting right there, the chairman, so.
Cool.
All right.
That wasn't so bad.
Next up would be public comments. At this comment, you can speak on anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily on the agenda. Yes.
Wait, give me a sec.
one
Brian, wait a
second.
sec,
Wait a
give me just a
second.
minute.
Get the gong
Yeah.
out for me?
Yep,
I must have closed my
Remember the
clock.
gong show?
we're getting the gong. That would be nice.
Did you just make reference to the Gong Show?
Yes.
Nice.
Chuck Burris,
Okay,
am I ready?
ready.
Go.
Okay, here we are. If you go back to the original agreement, that's what you need to do, is go back to step one, do your structural needs assessment of the current hall, and then build out your thought process from there. And you'll learn a lot in that. Now, you have 60,000 square feet at the property, the Township Hall, correct? Roughly, rounding up, you got a 14,000 square foot building there, which does satisfy the police and the fire and the code enforcement needs, I do believe, in the space assessment. I think you're right near there. What we need to know is, that's why we have to have the structural needs, and I think you should do it tonight, I spoke with WTA and Rick Freeman outside of the Parks Library when we had a meeting over there. And it was a good conversation. And it got a little bit tense. The thing of it is the only way they're going to do a structural needs assessment of the current Township Hall, build out your thought process from there, is if this board tells them to do it. But in the original agreement, that's why they put it first, because it was the most important. Rick Freeman put it first because it was the most important thing to do. Then you do your space and needs assessment. Then you do your cost analysis. Rick and I had another serious talk. He's going to be talking about, now he's going to do plans and we're going to be paying for this stuff, and he's doing energy evaluation costs for a new building, and then he's going to compare it to our current Township Hall. And I said, well, you can't do that, because when we go to rehabilitate and retrofit our current Township Hall, obviously, we're going to take care of all our energy needs. We're going to insulate properly. We're going to get with the Green Deal and all that good stuff. New plumbing, new sewer, new electric. You can do a standalone if you wish to. On the south lawn, like I said, you can go up 24,000 square feet if you want, 4 stories. You could do 2 layers at a time, or build all 4 if you want to. Do it like AHC did. They've got 10,000 square feet, 10,000 above it, and they designed it from the beginning, and the footings and the foundation. They can go 2 more stories. Did you know that? We can take there in a smaller model and do that there. And I think it'd look nice next to AHC. And then we hope that the McDonald brothers and all those plans go through. They're going with some height over there. I think we'd look cool. And the best place you can be is right there. For safety, strategically, you're in the best spot in the entire town. Most of our big fires are out River Road. Well, what we need to do, talking to the fire chief, we got to design it so that the fire trucks can get in and out easily. Well, the only way we can know that is if the engineer looks at the building and has that in his head, can we do that? In other words, the police, fire, and code basically takes over the whole hall as you have it. It's hard to envision, but none of us are engineers, so let's quit pretending that we are. We need to tell the engineer to do the structural needs and build out that thought process without spending much money. What can we actually do here? I think that's the direction we need to go. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else over on this side? Anybody else in the center? Yes.
What was that music we had before? Wasn't it with Ann?
Was it the Eye of the Tiger?
No, remember? It was some game. You guys were just talking to Brian about the whole game show thing.
The gong.
Gong.
The Gong, yeah. But remember we talked about that other game show and we wanted to play music when someone walks down the aisle? Anyways, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, I haven't started yet. Go ahead.
Trustee McGuire, thank you very much. I got my tax bill.
You're welcome.
I'm not happy about the amount, but I'm happy that it came on time because I was curious to see what the assessments were. And send me those pictures of that 1970s or whatever out of
Yes.
the ponds. I would love to see those.
Come on in, I have them at my office.
Okay. A couple of things I wanted to mention for this week. Thursday on the 13th, there is an Under the Radar premiere party at 4:30. So I hope everybody comes out for it. It's going to be big for our town. They were here from PBS videotaping so many local businesses and locations. The other thing, and part of the reason why I'm saying these is because Jessica Pravada couldn't be here tonight, but she mentioned them to me that she wanted to make sure we got the news out in the community. Hot Rods for Paws, Top Tree Provisioning is sponsoring that, and it's going to benefit the Iosco County Humane Society, and that's on Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, we have a walleye tournament here in Oscoda, Sabo, which is huge. Thursday night, they have the kids come out and meet the pros. So hopefully we get a lot of people. And then Saturday is our new Sunrise Side Family Market that's trying to kick off. So if everyone could come out and support those vendors, that would be fantastic. I wanted to bring up a couple of things about this needs assessment and the spatial agreement, because I actually went back and looked at the meetings. May 9th, 2022 is what you all need to reference on the MIC TV recordings. And during board comment about this topic, Supervisor Palmer specifically asked, does this agreement include the needs assessment on our current hall, and will that be included? It's not listed in the contract. And it was verified that, you know, Superintendent Klein, she had spoke to him about it. So, I mean, I kind of agree with you guys. How do you make a decision if you don't know what we can work with and what we can't? So anyways, just my 2 cents on that. We talked before about adding a follow-up section to the agenda, so I just wanted to point out a few things if they could get added in the future. We talked about an updated FOIA policy. We talked about social media. We were waiting for a lawyer to determine if we can create some social media pages to get information out to the community through social media. I think that's back, right? Yeah, so that's back. So I'd love to have somebody get an update. We talked about adding, and if I could formally request it, about adding an agenda item for Zoom recording all non-board member meetings, like when you guys have the subcommittees and different things like Planning Commission. I've been trying to go and record them, but it's getting busy in my business and I just can't go. It would be really nice. You don't have to have it interactive, but people are watching them and they're like listening to what people are saying in like the EIC meetings. We just had a new one. I think Rose and Nancy recorded it for us. Kathy recorded a planning meeting for us. So people really want to see this stuff and other people are recording them. And you have Zoom, you're already paying for it. We talked about Kratos refund, we're trying to figure out where that's at. Water loss, we talked about trying to put that on every meeting. We are still in the 60% for our loss ratio. Overpayments, that was another one. And the emergency notification, I know you said the county's doing it, Jeremy, but like, when?
What's that? I'm sorry.
The emergency notification, the 911 thing, you mentioned on the county level they're doing it, so we kind of wrapped up that discussion, but.
They've already started it. Next time we have comment.
No, that's okay, but you're using up my time. Also, we do need to revise the property disposition. It was originally approved by you guys on May of 2021, but there is a copy that says 2022, and I have looked through every board meeting, and there's nothing on there. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Debbie Rauch, Oscoda, kind of, for this week. I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. I talked to Jamie before the meeting about this, about the veterans exemption, and I know I talked to somebody that got their bill, and apparently there's an amount on it, and you guys are gonna have to go back and, or the assessor's gonna have to go back and redo those, and there's a lot of them, and I'm kind of wondering why it wasn't taken care of prior to sending the bills out. Seems like it's gonna add a lot of work to Jamie to have to redo those. So it kind of didn't make sense to me why they would do it that way. Anyways, let's see. The grant writing, you guys are talking about handling, hiring someone for grant writing. Seem to remember that Tammy said that she does grant writing, or her and I think it was Rick Freeman were doing it, so I don't know if she has any qualifications or anything for grant writing. So I was just wondering about that, why we don't have a superintendent that can write grants. Let's see, when you guys are talking about hiring a new EIC director, and you bring it to the board, and it seems like you should have already had a list of where you're gonna be advertising things. Not just off the top of your head. Should have, been in there. I keep wondering why you guys don't have work sessions, because watching this just now, well, first let me tell you, it's hard to hear you guys. A lot of times I couldn't even hear what some of you were saying, and I'm sitting right there, because you're turning your heads and talking, and we can't hear you. And I've had some people tell me that's why they don't come to the meetings, because they can hear it better if they're at home with some earphones on, then they can hear it here. And I was having, I'm in the third row, and I was having a hard time hearing some of you because you're turning your head talking, not talking into the mic. But anyways, I thought you guys were supposed to have work sessions, and a lot of this stuff that you guys were talking about, it was a lot of confusing, the conversation was kind of confusing. It seems like a lot of that would have been able to been worked out before you guys got here, if you had a work session. I thought you guys were supposed to do those on Fridays before the board meeting, and I don't know if you still do them or not. And my last thing is, I tried to have a conversation with Mr. Sutton a couple weeks ago when the banner issue came up, because I was a little bit upset with the banners not being put up, and I felt really bad for that lady that came up and said that her banners were in. And when I tried to talk to him, he hung up on me. Now, to me, that's not acceptable. I should be able to call you guys, I was in New York at the time, and talk to you guys on the phone without me hearing, this is not productive, click. To me, that's just not right. So I think that should be addressed maybe in your new employee, evaluation thing, how you speak to the public and the taxpayers. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I see Mr. Wynn here, did you have something you wanted to talk about tonight?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Okay, okay.
What were you ready for?
I'm here if you have questions.
I will take
I will be
it.
back at the next meeting.
Okay, all right. I was going to take advantage of asking you about how work on our water loss is coming.
Is that off topic?
As long as you're here.
Aren't you glad
This
you
is
showed
not on the
up,
agenda.
Matt? It's kind of putting her on the spot because
It's
it's
not-
not an agenda item.
Yeah.
Public
Oh, that's
comment.
okay. So we are working on it. I know Mr. Freeman has been updating you. We have been working with rural water. They're going to be back out on site this Thursday. They have identified a couple spots that we will be following up on to see if what they're hearing are leaks or, specifically other things. Sometimes it's hard to discern with the auditory equipment. They haven't been able to utilize the correlator unit that they have, which is more sophisticated. They only have one for the whole rural water organization within the state. So Rick and I are following up with some vendors that we're going to have come out and do hopefully some demos, some demonstrations of equipment, and see if we can actually kind of sneak in like maybe some of those spots that they've identified are possible leaks and have them do a demonstration and see if they can actually identify, specifically if there is something there. As well as just seeing if the equipment is user-friendly and how it would be used and how much it would be. Because, what we're looking at is the fact that, the last few leak detection studies that the township has had done, probably between the two of them totaled about $50,000 and really were not productive, except for one. I think there was one spot that they identified, but the rest of them were pretty minimal. And yet the water loss continues on. And so we'd like to be able to have that equipment available, train, the local staff, even the DPW staff also, not just the water department staff, and even have that equipment available if someone like from rural water could come and assist us, and then the equipment would be here for them instead of having to wait for it to be freed up from some other, community that they're trying to assist. So we think there's a lot of options there. Continuing to work with, staff, making sure that, the reads that we're getting on the meters are accurate and that, just periodically when you have, almost 4,000 meters in the system, you do have to go back and check on different things if they're getting things that look like, low readings or zero readings when there should, we would assume that there's somebody there and, there's a lot of follow-up to do. Some of it may be, some related to that, although I don't think that's, the expense that the townships had with the new meters, I don't think that's a large part of the problem, but we do try to keep on top of all that stuff every month. So it's just an ongoing process and still no smoking gun. We keep checking everything that we can. We do still ask the public if, you see or hear something. Of course, after last Saturday's rain, everything's probably pretty soggy, but we have had in the past where community members have seen something that could be a water leak and, don't take the time to let the township know right away, and it could have been stopped earlier or investigated earlier. So, things like if someone all of a sudden has unusually low water pressure, that is usually sometimes an indication that maybe their water service is leaking or, other things of that nature. So we do ask the community, because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and their help is, just absolutely critical to making sure that this process goes forward. Anybody have anything else? No. Okay.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but since you were here, and I know everybody's interested, and I know you're working on the water loss problem. I think it was brought up several meetings ago that Flint did a big investigation on their water loss. And if you watched the news last night, they had a major water main break. They're in a boil water situation right now. They've lost, I think, several million gallons of water from a main that's ruptured there that they're working on. So we all have our problems with our water. And our water infrastructure, we have some very old lines in our system that most definitely could be leaking or fractured or whatever. So it's a difficult problem. I know it, we're losing all this water. So you should be able to just go out and find it. But like Ms. Wynn said, we need the help of all of you to report if you see water, if your water pressure is low, any of those indicators. Call the township and let us know, and we'll get somebody out there to investigate it. And that's where, you know, typically some of these sources of water loss are going to be, without question. So we need all of your help to get that going. So, any other comments? Board comments? Mr. Spencer?
Real quick, you're talking about the 911 thing, where the notification for like boil water advisories and whatnot. They said that to recap, they've set the system up and it's ready to go, but we haven't sent them any emergencies yet, and it's geofenced. So when we say that if it's on the old on Wordsmith Airport, the housing that's on there, they will geofence that area, and you only get the notification if you're in there or if you drive into it during the notification on your cell phone as an emergency alert. So we're talking about getting some of the news and all that stuff, so that you can sign up and have events and all those things sent to you as well. But they're not ready for that. It was just for the emergencies. So the emergencies are ready. Tammy can contact them and provide the information about a water boil emergency or anything like that, and they will push that notification to the phones in the area. But the rest of it's not done yet. So I'll bug them at the next 911 meeting. And a quick update, since I missed the last meeting. The only thing that really came up in the 911 board meeting as a general update was they're still working on the new 800 megahertz radio antenna towers and some signal loss areas in some areas. Some of the officers are reporting that when they go into these buildings, they're losing signal. They have to walk around and get signal a little bit. And they're still working on a couple of those with Motorola. And other than that, everything's rocking and rolling. So, but I will ask at the next meeting when we can expect to have it set up so that Oscoda can send out news and other alerts, and that people can sign up for it.
That costs more money, just so you know.
Does it?
Yes, that's
Oh.
why emergencies are free.
Oh,
But when
right,
you want to
okay.
add events and news, that costs more money. That's a cost.
That's right.
So,
Okay. Well, it looks like we're going to have some emergency events. Just kidding. That was it. Thank you.
Mr. Sutton?
Nothing.
Mr. Wusselbaum?
Apologize to the board about being a few minutes late today, so sorry about that. I was on vacation last week and just had a lot of catch up to do today, and time got away from me. Secondly, I'd like to thank Ms. Klein. As I've been away, we had a meeting this morning with herself and myself and Mr. Palmer on a few items, and I appreciate the extra effort and follow-up on those items, so thank you, Tammy. That's it.
Mr. Taser?
Yeah, I would like to also apologize for missing the last meeting. I had a family emergency that I had to immediately take care of. And with that done, I do have a question, something that came up. Tammy, you went through grant writing. Did you get a certification for grant writing?
no,
No. Well, you went through an MSU extension
yes.
course for grant writing?
Mhm.
Okay. And the water loss issue is part of, we've had discussions in the utilities committee. So those are some of the things that I've been working on. And the last one quick thing, I wanted to put Jeremy on the spot. We discussed several, maybe a month or so ago about, I think you called it an OWL, recording device, audio recording device to use. You were going to get us some pricing on that. You're still working on that?
So so the one that I was talking about, the problem that I'm running into is that all of them are requiring software licensing. And so I'm looking for a standalone device that we don't have to continue to pay every time we have a meeting and every time a monthly fee. They all want monthly fees, and it's driving me crazy.
But we're
yeah,
working on it.
I will find one.
Okay.
And it may not be video though. There's a bunch of them out there that are audio only, and we can set up, and they've got little microphones that go around the table, and they can hear. You can hear everything that happens, but you can't see them. And I think that the public wants to be able to see them.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for one that has what's called a fisheye camera on the top of it. So it's a 360-degree view, 360-degree microphones. You set it in the middle of the table, it records everything until you turn it off. And then you can pop the SD card, put it into a computer, and upload the file to wherever you want for viewing and review.
The school uses that.
Yeah, but it's not an hour.
Now,
No.
No.
now on the Zoom that we have a license for Zoom. The problem that I've seen in the past, so you're gonna need somebody that's gonna run the meeting then, and then put it out there, and I've seen a lot of problems with Zoom as far
Well,
as.
yeah, we were trying to avoid having an additional task for someone to
Yes.
perform, other than,
Set it down,
Push
push
the
a button.
button.
That is the
Go.
goal. Okay,
yeah, so.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Ms.
Okay.
McGuire?
Yes, I have a couple things, actually. Taxes did go out.
Thank you. Always makes you popular.
I know, right, exactly, twice a year. I want to just bring up a couple things that are on the tax bill. We seem to have a few phone calls or people stop in, a little confused about it. Our form looks the same, whether you are signed up for ACH, automatic withdrawal for your mirror thing, whether you have a mortgage company that's paying it, or if it's just your actual tax bill. So if you look up in the top left-hand corner, it says message to taxpayer there, and the messages are different for each scenario. So like if you have a mortgage company or a finance institution that's requesting your bill, under that message, the first line it says is, "This is not a bill. Keep for your records," and somebody else has requested to pay your bill for you. So it looks like a bill, but it's just a copy for you because by law I have to send one to everybody. The other scenario is ACH. It'll say this is not a bill. You have signed up for automatic withdrawal. If you've sold your house or something has changed with your information, please contact me right away. We'll get it taken care of. The other one, it just says, I don't know, happy summer. Thanks for living in Oscoda to work and play, and gives kind of different payment options, those type of things. So those are the three different scenarios for the tax bill. And if anybody has any questions, we would be happy to answer that. Kelly, I did not forget about your question at the last meeting. I was busy getting everybody's tax bills out about the investments. I will have the quarterly investment report at the next meeting, so I'll be able to address that then. The other question about the veterans exemption process from Debbie, while we were all chatting and things, I looked up on my email, and I actually have found the email from the new assessor, Alan Berg, that speaks to this. He said that he sends out cover page and a few forms to each one of the veterans to fill the forms out. And then he collects those from about November through now, which was July 6th timeframe of when I got this, and for the July border review processing, which is what I said, speaking with the outside. He noted that he thought that maybe that it was a different process than what the prior assessor had used because he had gotten a few phone calls. But that's good or bad, that's the process now. So I can work with them and see. I don't know if that's statute required, that they have to do it that way, or if that's just the way he is. But he's been pretty flexible and good to work with in other instances, moving forward. This is my first tax roll, like with him from start to finish. So we've been working well together, and it's been pretty smooth so far. So I'm sure we'll be able to get this worked out too.
Okay,
And that's all I have.
thank you. Thank you. None of us are perfect on this board. We all make mistakes. Sometimes things get delayed, get put off. I will say one thing you can always count on being on time is your taxes being sent to you.
Required by law.
Those will always, Jamie, make sure those always go out
Yep.
on time. A couple of things. I just wanted to mention the fireworks that we had on the 4th. Was a very good display. I thought it was excellent. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Klein for that. Our previous vendor that used to provide our fireworks for a number of years, at the last minute just backed out. And so she was able to find, for the same amount of money, a new vendor to put on our fireworks. And from all accounts, everything went smooth, and it was a beautiful display. So hopefully we'll have a new vendor for that we can use in the future and won't give us problems, at the last minute for whatever reason. I mentioned the Flint water loss that they're experiencing right now is a serious problem. Another thing that I noticed, it's in our packet, is informational, is Consumers Power is including Iosco County is one of the counties in Michigan that they are going to be burying electrical lines. And I think that will be a big benefit to us in terms of down power lines and outages that we experience here on a fairly regular basis, and for sometimes extended periods of time. And so that's something I'm glad to see that they've included Iosco County. Is they're only including a few counties in Michigan that they're looking at doing that. As was mentioned earlier, the dam proposal from consumers, that's something that will be decided. It's going to be 10 years or so before that decision is made. But there will be a number of meetings, and Ms. McGuire and myself and Ms. Klein, we met with consumers a week or two ago, and like mentioned, they proposed that perhaps the township could help with some of the funding. And I said, you know, we could go for 50 years and we'd never be able to put together enough money to do what they're, hundreds of millions of dollars they were talking about that would be required. I don't remember exactly, 170 million or something to that tune. And I mean, that's just not something that the township can even consider. There was a proposal that perhaps the township could take over the electrical generation. And the thought is that if consumers' power can't make money at generating electricity, what possible chance would we have at making a successful attempt at doing that? So I'm hoping that what will come out of this, as I mentioned before, is that they will be willing to take their generators out and turn those into just water control dams where they can control the levels of the river and the ponds. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I can't believe it's July 10th already. I don't know where this year is going. Quite literally, it seems to be zooming by. And I just wish everybody enjoyable rest of the summer that we have left. Enjoy it, because as it's gone so far, it's going to go by fast. So thank you for coming out, and I would make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.